Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ren. In this channel, I share knowledge and practical techniques on trauma healing and everything about mental health. Today, I wanted to talk about what does it feel like to be triggered and the 3 common types of trigger. In the land of healing, we often hear people say that, oh, you are getting triggered, you are being triggered, you feel like triggered. So what exactly is it? What does it mean by being triggered? It's hard to explain because we know that when we're getting in the zone, we just feel it, right? We know we're experiencing it. Maybe out of nowhere, you're experiencing this powerful dose of emotions like shame, fear, or anxiety. You may experience physical sensations like heart racing, palm sweats, and dizzy, short of breath. Sometimes you feel like you're fainting. And you often get stuck in your headspace. The voices of your inner critic gets really intensified and increased. And it's like really loud and screaming at you. And you just hear those repetitive phrases that shame you for being worthless, for being unlovable, for being useless. You start to space out and get trapped in your head, and you have this nagging sense, this nagging awareness that something's wrong and something terrible is going to happen around you, and there's nothing you can do to control it. There might be visual components to it, meaning that you might see images, you might see memories, but sometimes you don't, because when you're getting triggered, if this emotional brain that's getting triggered, that's getting activated, that's overriding your rational brain, you probably don't even have this cognitive reasoning about what's happening, but you just experience it in the body and mind level, and at the same time you feel this urge to do something about it. You probably wanted to run away from your body, you probably wanted to get out of here, you probably want to just run back to your own space, to be by yourself, to crawl into a like really small ball, to hide from people. Under the situation, you have this compulsive and almost urgent kind of urge to react, to overreact later, which you may recall as being irrational or compulsive. So a trigger is anything that might cause you this distress, this response towards it, and it's often a reminiscent feeling of this painful emotions from childhood that you're experiencing as if it's happening right now. So it's like you're living in trauma times instead of the current moment, instead of the present, because you are experiencing the same exact, maybe exaggerated, maybe more accumulated over the years, but the same feelings, the same pain, as if you're that helpless child again. Dr. Ron Siegel explained it as, so when we're getting triggered, it's like this emotion or this memory failed to integrate to our oneness, and we're not experiencing a coherent kind of presence. And at the same time, our emotional brain gets really activated because all of those emotional feelings are stored in our emotional brain. And our cognitive brain, our rational brain, gets less active. So we may lose sense of what is happening in reality, what is happening right now. We feel like we're actually going through these feelings from the past. So that's a really painful experience when we're getting triggered, because it's not just how our thoughts are happening. It's not just how we think things are. It's our both body and mind level reacting to that trigger. When we're getting triggered, most of the time, we're not conscious that we're getting triggered. We just experience this overwhelming senses that is hard to bear, and we might be ashamed of telling people that this is happening because we feel like, well, other people, they are normal and we are behaving and thinking differently, we're feeling differently, we're not happy, so there must be something wrong with us, and that really adds to the pain of being triggered. Next, I'm going to talk about 3 common types of trigger. The first type of trigger is people. Maybe you would be immediately triggered when you see the people who resemble the abuser of your childhood. When you see that look from someone who shows disgust and contempt, might remind you of your parents' disgust toward you when you were doing something stupid. Maybe their tone of voice, maybe their facial expressions, maybe their hairstyle, maybe any type of authority figures, maybe your boss and leaders who remind you of your parents who can never be satisfied with you, who always reject and shame you, who are never pleased to have you around. who are overly critical of you. Maybe that frown look with some skepticism, maybe that silent treatment from someone, maybe that no reply from someone remind you of the abandonment anxiety you experienced. Or even a cursing language might remind you of the bully at school. People can really trigger our inner critic when we feel like they are someone that we cannot please, they are someone that we cannot control, they are someone we don't feel safe around. It would trigger our intense, painful feelings of shame. The shame of being defective, of not being good enough to win their approval and validation. For me, it was really hard to be around authority figures, especially my boss. The weird thing is that when they are my boss, I fear them. I fear their poker face because I feel like they're upset, they're angry with me. I become overly critical of myself whenever I have to be expressing myself, exposing myself in a public place with them, because I feel like they might laugh at me, they might shame me for being who I am. The weird thing is that whenever they left the job, so they are not my superior anymore, we become friends, like we become pretty close, and I can finally see that they are normal people with their own emotions and needs and limitations. But when they are back in the position of a leader, I cannot be around them. It scares me. The second type of trigger is situation. Maybe being under the spotlight, being stared at, visiting your parents, being in the dark, rainy days, hearing your friends argue or having a conflict, maybe death of a celebrity. And this is a big one for me because I haven't fully integrated my mom's death when I was 7. So every time I see a celebrity who is young and who is humble, who's hardworking, down to earth, maybe just they share the same characteristics of my mom, I would cry like unstoppably. And I would cry for days, even though I don't really like them before their death. I don't even know them before their death, but I just cannot process the death and loss and separation. Maybe being at the airport, being at the train station, seeing someone, saying goodbye, being in a crowd with strangers, receiving negative feedback from maybe anyone, delivering a public speech, and all sorts of those stuff can be triggers, can be potential triggers. Triggers can be very personal. Sometimes my trigger not be yours, and your trigger might not be mine because it's unique to personal history, right? Personal experience. That's why sometimes we feel incredibly lonely and we berate ourselves when we're experiencing feelings or emotions in response to a situation that others don't. We become ashamed to talk about it. We become ashamed to own that experience unique to ours. We become ashamed to own that emotions. We are desperately trying to push that experience, to push that emotion out of our lives so that we can run away from it, so we don't experience it anymore. But the more we avoid it, the more we run away from it, our body and mind will actually register it as dangerous. Triggers can be incredibly hard to target. First, it's invisible. Like sometimes we don't really know like what's triggering us, and it's just come out of nowhere, and we're in the storm, and we feel small, we feel hopeless, we feel helpless, we gain this self-disgust. And secondly, sometimes we know that while we're getting triggered, and we try to disown that experience, we try to run away from it because we think that's scary and it's hard to control. So the more we run away from it, the more we become scared of it, and it kind of just creates this vicious cycle. And thirdly, when we're not being able to really discover like what's underneath the trigger that needs healing, that's needing our attention, there's no way we can heal it. That's why it's very important to have a healthy relationship with our triggers. We need to be aware of it, we need to identify it so that we can take preventative actions towards it, and then we can heal the part that underneath the trigger that's calling our attention. And the third type of trigger is emotions and physical sensations. For people with emotional wounds, any type of emotion can potentially be a trigger. For example, excitement. Sometimes when people are like positively aroused, they can go straight to anxiety. For me, it was happiness. When I'm happy, I would feel like I'm driving a racing car that is hard to stop, that is going so wild, that is flying, that I cannot control my emotions and feelings anymore. So I would immediately go to anxiety and go to fear, and I would immediately go to this trigger state, like something bad is going to happen. And another big one is mood swings for people, especially from positive to negative ones for no reason. So when people experience this positive to negative emotion when they don't know why, they get triggered. And for those people, most likely in childhood, they weren't allowed to experience and explore full spectrum of emotions. Maybe their parents would yell at them for crying, for being sad. Maybe their parents would see anger as a bad thing. When a child is not allowed to experience this full spectrum of emotions, any type of emotion can be a trigger. Another really big one is physical sensations. So when we experience emotions, even without emotions, we would like constantly experience the internal sensations, maybe stomach tightening, finger tingling, and maybe heart racing, and all those kind of physical sensations. Personally for me, whenever I have these physical sensations arising, I didn't know how to deal with it. Because I wasn't taught by my mom to how to properly tolerate this distress. So I would go straight to panic state. I would go straight to anxiety, to run away from my body, to try to get out of my body so I don't feel it. So I don't feel this uncomfortable feelings anymore. For people who have this distress tolerance skills, they know how to deal with body sensations and emotions because they know they are part of life. They know that things come and things go naturally. It's like ebb and flow. I lacked the skills properly to know that everything flows and everything goes. Distress tolerance is incredibly important in the land of healing trauma, and I wanted to dedicate another video talking about it to show you how I reparent myself in learning those skills to heal my inner wounds. Alright everyone, I hope this video is helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.